Most people imagine wars as battles fought with guns, tanks, and bombs. But some of the most devastating conflicts in history have been fought quietly, invisibly, in the corridors of finance. Entire nations have fallen, not to invading armies, but to the invisible weapons of printing presses, interest rates, and shifting exchange rates. These are the currency wars, battles you won't find in high school history books. A currency war might sound abstract, like numbers on a screen or policy debates in distant capitals, but the stakes are very real. These wars decide who eats and who starves, who commands power and who obeys. They shape the rise and fall of empires just as much as any general marching into battle. The idea is deceptively simple. Use money as a weapon. Governments can devalue currencies to boost exports, flood markets with cheap credit to destabilize rivals, or hoard precious metals to tighten the economic screws. On paper, these strategies appear clever. In reality, currency wars are economic chemical warfare. Your enemy may be hurt, but your own economy often suffers collateral damage. One of the earliest modern examples came during the Great Depression. After the 1929 stock market crash, nations scrambled to sell goods abroad, yet global demand had collapsed. Desperation led to competitive devaluation. Britain abandoned the gold standard in 1931, sending the pound plummeting. The United States followed in 1933, slashing the dollar's gold backing. France, Italy, Japan all joined the race to cheapen their money. Instead of reviving trade, it triggered a spiral of economic pain. Imports soared, living standards plummeted, and these financial battles helped pave the path to the Second World War. Currency wars didn't start in the 20th century, though. The Roman Empire faced its own silent battles nearly 2,000 years ago, and the lessons they left behind still echo today. Long before modern economies existed, Rome faced its own silent financial battles. The empire's lifeblood was its silver denarius, a coin whose credibility underpinned Rome's power. But as the empire expanded and military campaigns grew ever costlier, emperors faced a tempting shortcut: debase the currency. Silver was mixed with cheaper metals, gradually reducing its purity. What began as a slight adjustment eventually turned coins that were nearly 100% silver into tokens containing less than 5%. The effects were predictable. Inflation surged, trust in money eroded, and economic stability crumbled from within. The barbarians at the gates were only one threat. Rome had already begun to sabotage itself. Markets faltered, soldiers were underpaid, and the common citizen felt the pinch long before armies even reached the city walls. Centuries later, the principle remained the same. Currency could be wielded as a weapon, but wielded poorly, it could destroy the wielder as much as the target. The stakes were not just wealth, but survival and influence. Fast forward to the 20th century, and the battleground became more sophisticated. Following the devastation of World War II, the Bretton Woods system was established to stabilize global currencies. The US dollar was pegged to gold, and other currencies were pegged to the dollar. It seemed like a safeguard against financial warfare, but centralizing monetary power in one nation created a new battlefield. The United States could now project influence through currency alone, quietly, strategically, and without firing a single shot. The story of currency wars moves from Rome to the turmoil of the 20th century, where invisible financial battles reshaped the world. After the 1929 stock market crash, nations were desperate to keep their economies alive. Exports were critical, yet global demand had collapsed. Governments turned to competitive devaluation. Britain abandoned the gold standard in 1931, sending the pound tumbling. The United States followed in 1933, reducing the dollar's gold backing. France, Italy, Japan all joined the race. Instead of solving the crisis, these moves created a beggar-thy-neighbor spiral. Prices soared, living standards fell, and tensions intensified, laying the groundwork for World War II. This new order appeared to end currency wars, but it merely shifted the battleground. America's control over the dollar allowed it to project financial power worldwide. Nations who resisted or fell out of line faced economic pressure instead of bullets. By the late 1960s, however, printing more dollars than could be backed by gold fueled instability. In 1971, President Nixon closed the gold window, ending dollar convertibility and plunging the world into a new era of floating exchange rates and a new age of currency wars. The 1980s demonstrated just how lethal this battlefield could be. Japan's booming exports created massive trade surpluses with the United States. Washington responded not with military might, but with coordinated currency strikes. The Plaza Accord of 1985 deliberately devalued the US dollar and inflated the Japanese yen. Exports became more expensive, a bubble inflated, and when it burst in the 1990s, Japan endured decades of stagnation, all without a single shot fired. In currency wars, the weapons are subtle, but the casualties are real. Factories close, jobs vanish, savings evaporate, and entire populations feel the fallout long after the decisions are made in far-off capitals. Currency wars didn't disappear after the 20th century. They evolved. The 1997 Asian financial crisis showed just how brutal modern financial battles could be. Speculative attacks forced Thailand to abandon its peg to the US dollar, and the collapse of the baht quickly spread to Indonesia, South Korea, and Malaysia. Currencies plunged, economies contracted, and millions were thrust into poverty almost overnight. The battlefield was global, and everyone, willingly or not, became a participant. Fast forward to the 2020 pandemic, and the pace accelerated. Governments around the world printed unprecedented sums to fund stimulus programs. In the United States alone, trillions of dollars were created in under 2 years. Initially, markets soared, unemployment fell, and consumer spending surged. But the cost of these measures was inevitable. By 2022, inflation reached 40-year highs. Interest rate hikes to stabilize one economy rippled across the globe, making imports costlier, destabilizing weaker currencies, and pushing nations like Sri Lanka to the brink of collapse. Currency wars today are a subtle storm, invisible to most, but devastating in effect. The stage is now set for Currency War 4.0. The United States and China quietly compete for dominance through central banks, currency internationalization, and gold reserves. Emerging economies face impossible choices: keep rates low to fuel growth and risk capital flight, or raise them to defend their currency and choke economic activity. Every move in this invisible battlefield affects your daily life, the cost of groceries, rent, loans, and savings. These wars are fought not in trenches, but in boardrooms, central banks, and policy announcements. And the lessons of history remain clear. The victor is often the one with the most leverage, the most influence, and the ability to weaponize money without ever firing a shot. For everyone else, ignorance can be costly. Understanding the patterns of currency wars is no longer academic, it's survival. History teaches a simple but uncomfortable truth. Money is never neutral. It is a weapon, a tool of power, and a force that can build or destroy nations without a single bullet fired. From Rome's debased denarius to the Great Depression, from the Plaza Accord to today's digital financial maneuvers, the playbook remains the same. The victors are not always the smartest or the most productive. Often they are the most powerful, the most strategic, and the most aware of how to wield money as leverage. The average person rarely sees the battle. By the time the headlines report interest rate hikes, devaluations, or sanctions, the damage is done. Savings erode, prices rise, and opportunities vanish. Currency wars are fought silently, yet their consequences are felt in every grocery bill, every loan, every paycheck. Understanding the patterns is the first step toward survival. Real financial security is no longer about trusting the numbers in your bank account. It is about recognizing the tools of the system, diversifying assets, and holding portions of wealth in places resilient to political and economic pressure. It is about learning from history so that you can act before the storm reaches your door. Next time you hear about a currency adjustment, a sudden rate cut, or a new round of economic sanctions, remember, it is not abstract. It is the opening salvo in a conflict where everyone participates willingly or not. Knowledge, foresight, and strategic action are your defenses. If this story changed the way you see money, power, and the invisible battles shaping our world, subscribe now. Dive deeper into history's hidden lessons and learn how to protect your wealth before the next move is made.